Hi, this is Can Artificial Intelligence Write Better Structured Query Language Than You? My name is Dave Stokes. I'm a community manager at DBeaver. I've been using open source since it started and love databases, love open source. And you usually catch me at conferences or my blog or other stuff that I do. Um, this is a wonderful example to talk about what actually is going on in artificial intelligence. Um, Artificial intelligence has made great strides recently, and it's in all the press. Many, many years ago, I worked for a company that used machine learning to hunt Soviet submarines. Very interesting work, and I've always followed the technology and advances they made in artificial intelligence. And in the past several years, they've really leapfrogged from where they were. So if you're dealing with a database on a regular basis, or more importantly, an infrequent basis where you know how to use it, but you're not really comfortable, this is for you. Today we're going to be talking a little about SQL, a lot about AI. We're going to talk about some ways to secure your data and give you some examples. Now, the first thing I want to cover, well, me very briefly, once again, Dave Stokes, I'm at DBeaver. I wrote a book about MySQL and JSON, and as I said, I love databases and open source, and there's a lot of really cute stuff out there now. Now, structured query language is kind of an oddity. It's the only programming language around from the 1970s that's still popular. Because it's efficient, it runs very well on a lot of modern hardware. It also saves you from duplication of data. If you have to save one piece of information one place, that's easy. If you have to save one piece, keep one piece of information in two places, that gets difficult. Databases don't want you to do that. Powerful. SQL is a very powerful programming language. Things like windowing functions and the analytical functions make it a necessity for businesses today. Whoops. And the relational model that Cod and other folks came up with 50, 60 years ago maps well to many processes in life. It's the way people think in business, and that was one of the reasons it stuck around so long. Unfortunately, SQL is kind of quirky. It has a funky syntax. It's a descriptive, not an imperative language. If you're coming from an imperative language, you've never seen a descriptive language like SQL or CSS, it's kind of odd because you're describing what you want, not telling you how to do it. You ordering the pizza, putting the toppings on rather than making the flour, growing the tomatoes, making the sauce and all that. And it's best with databases to think in sets, not rows. That's kind of a paradigm shift for a lot of developers coming into databases. And of course, around that, we wrap transactions. As someone told me, this is kind of like dribbling two basketballs while riding a unicycle over a flaming pit on a tightrope. It's another layer around SQL that you have to think about to get the most power out. It's just not intuitive. By the way, SQL is standardized. Unfortunately, all the implementations are not. So what works with Postgres will not work in MySQL or SQL Server and vice versa. So artificial intelligence is changing the world. The media is telling you that all the time. Lots of hype about it, but what does it really do? Is it really useful? I'm going to show you some examples of that. And the first thing I'm going to ask is, can the AI actually write some stuff for us to make itself useful? Could it be like a junior coding partner for us? Well, in the background of all that, think that you are working with your data, emphasizing your. Most artificial intelligence are hosted remotely, Olama being the big exception. This means your data is going from your computer over a network to someone else's set of computers and global processors and manipulated and then sent back. If you're a security person, that might make you a little bit anxious. So got to keep that in the back of your mind that you don't want your stuff getting exposed. And as I have over here, you don't want all your secrets on the front page of the New York Times. So security, what if that was enough to kind of put you off using an AI? You don't have to think about that. You can run your own large language model on-prem. The two options are you can roll your own. There's lots of interesting stuff there, and there's a link at the end of this that I'll share with you that from the register has an interesting introduction. Or the most popular one is an open source project called Olama, and you'll see that in a couple of minutes. Now, the company I work for, DBeaver is a universal database tool. I'll show you our methodology. We just, by default, only share the metadata, not the actual data. And you'll see how that works in just a little bit. So example one, we're going to go out there and talk to 4 large language models, and we're going to ask it the same database question. We're going to write a simple prompt asking the AI to do something. If you're not used to working with a chat bot, it might be a little disconcerting, but this is basically how they work. So we're going to get some details, but not all the details. And what we're going to ask is, using the MySQL World Database, how do I find all the cities in the Texas district and their populations? The MySQL World Database has been around for almost 30 years. It's used in all their documentation, training, anything that deals with MySQL. There's examples. It either uses the World Database or the Sequela database. They've been around. They're all over the place and well known. And that's part of the thing here, is because it needs to be well known for the AI to get to it. Well, if we go to Grok and type in our prompt, it comes back and tells us, here's the SQL query, and explains where it's getting the data from, how it's quantifying the data, and the columns that it's actually pulling from the table, and gives us a hint where if we want to sort it by population, here's how you do that with SQL. If you had a junior SQL coder who answered the question this way, you'd be very happy with them. Google, in a similar fashion, comes back and explains what's going on. And it says, identify the country code for the United States and then filter the city table based on that country code. Their query is very similar. I guess they're worried, though, if there's other countries out there that have a district named Texas. I have not run into that yet. Olama. Olama is a little bit different. I'm running Olama. I'm running the Gemma 3 engine, and it loads, and I put it in our prompt, and it comes up with a very similar query, much to what Grok had, and gives a little bit of an explanation. As you can see, this is not as pretty, but it's functional and does the work. ChatGPT also comes back and tells us that the database has 3 tables, which is something we might not have known beforehand. To get all the cities in Texas, along with their populations, you only need the city table, so it's smart enough to discern that. Comes up with a query that looks very familiar, and then gives an explanation. As you can see, these are pretty much the same information. The only variation being is that Grok, ChatGPT, or Llama, once again, are just looking for stuff in the District of Texas, and Google is being a little more specific, just in case there is another country out there that has a district named Texas. On the whole, for a low-level, simple SQL query, that's pretty darn good. Okay, so once again, we used a well-known database. The LLM knew how to go out to the internet and find information about it and train itself on what's out there and come back to you. And it's readily found the information, but it didn't get it from us. So what do you do when the data is not well known? Well, we're going to take a little bit of a detour here. We're going to do a little bit more complex prompt just to show off the power. This time we're going to ask for a table on a Postgres 17 server to record data on customers. We're asking for a first name, a last name, an address, a birth date, and a unique UUID primary key. Then we're asking it to partition the data by the year of birth and produce some test data. This is a lot more complicated. By the way, I'm not a big fan of UUIDs, but it's a common request when you're creating databases. And there's a lot of specifications in here. So we ask Grok. They want us to use the UUID OSSSP extension, creates a table with the primary key being, well, part of the key being the UUID, first name, last name, address, birth date, birth year. And birth year is generated from the birth date field and stored, so it's a generated column, partitioned by range. And it creates 3 partitions for data from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and gives us some test data. I find that pretty good. Google similarly comes out and customer ID declares it directly as the primary key, first name, last name, address, birth date, partitioned by range, uh, creates the partitions. Now for the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, which matches the date here. Olama does something just a little, well, pretty much the difference. Same thing. Primary key UUID for default is a generated random ID. Partition gives us the test data, tells us how to verify the partitioning, and gives us some improvements and explanations. Fairly helpful information to help document your database. Big trouble with this is it doesn't work. We'll fix that a little bit later. Okay, ChatGPT. This is the one I found most interesting. They asked for an extension and ended up not using it. Customer ID is a UUID, primary key, first name, last name, address, birth date. And then it creates 6 partitions for the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s. That was some forward thinking because none of this data, well, there is a couple from 2020. So it's reacting to its data. So conclusion, pretty close in design of the schema. There's some things I'd tighten up on all of them. Slight variation in the data and the partitioning. And pretty much followed what we wanted for UUIDs. It's a very workable solution. Okay, and now I'm going to go into DBeaver's AI assistant. What's really interesting about this approach is that by default, you're only sending the metadata or the data description language of the schema. So it looks at the tables, but doesn't look at the data. Now, optionally, you can have it send foreign keys, unique keys to help get better response from the AI. The AI is only as good as the information it has. And then optionally, you can send data. By default, it doesn't send data. By the way, you can also select tables to be used and exclude others. So if you have a table with customer information, that's the general stuff about the customers, and another one about their credit card information, and you don't want the AI to see the credit card information, you can exclude that very easily. So setup is very simple. I'm using this on DBeaver Enterprise. And under the Preferences window, you have an AI tab. And currently we're supporting Azure OpenAI, Google Gemini, Olama, OpenAI, and GitHub Copilot. You click on the link to your LLM, get a key generated, paste it in here, save it, and you're halfway there. Now, the next thing I recommend doing is going out and look at the configuration. This is very important. One of the things I recommend that you don't have on is execute SQL immediately. If you're working on developing a set of queries or schemas or like that, you don't want to run right away because it's just you're going to be repeating yourself. That burns tokens that they charge you for the paid LLM models. It helps that if you're doing something iteratively to send previous AI chat answers so it has continuity there. Query suggestion, you'll see that in just a little bit. Now, over here is where the security stuff kicks in. You need to send data information to go out there and look at your data and help it develop queries. Now, if you don't want to send, if you rely heavily on foreign keys, I recommend sending foreign keys and sending unique and primary keys. This especially helps with it, make sure that it has the proper index usage. Now, if you want to send data, which can help the accuracy of what the AI produces for you, you can tell it how much to send. But notice by default, these are all off. You're just sending the metadata. So once you've done that, you click on the AI Assistant tab, and it will ask you, is it okay for me to read your metadata? And you have to confirm yes or no. And then from there, you can go into one of our SQL consoles. And in this example, I'm signifying this is going to the artificial intelligence we're hooked up to with the @AI. and we ask who are the top 5 customers and how much revenue did they generate. Hopefully that's a fairly common question you're going to get. Now, this is what pops up. And there's our prompt that you just saw. Over here, we have the SQL that it's generated. I'm sorry, it's cut off at the top. But you can see that it's doing joins and it knows how to do the group bys and the order by. And down here is our result. Notice there's no SQL up here. So if you're rusty with your SQL or not happy with writing SQL or it's just too quirky for you, this is a wonderful way to do things. Another thing you can do is describe the SQL you want. Here we put dash dash space 5 top cities for revenue. Then I type select, hit carriage return, and then I hit Control Alt right arrow, and it will go out there and generate the SQL for me. Now, that is very handy, especially if you're not happy with your knowledge of SQL. This will get you some good stuff. Excuse me. And here's a formatted version. You can see this is very, very sophisticated SQL, and it's doing a lot of joins and does a lot of great stuff for you. And all you had to do was type this part of the prompt and select and control right arrow. Now, if you're what they used to call database administrator, now it's buried someplace in DevOps, someone will occasionally throw you a new database, say, hey, someone developed this in this other team, usually a marketing team, and we need you to put this in production. So what you do is you select your database and say, well, you load the new database in, and you select your database and describe database object, and it will go out there and investigate for you and come back and tells you the schema consists of several interconnected tables that store information about a music store. If this is your first exposure to it, this is very handy information. At a deeper level, maybe it's a table that you haven't dealt with before and you want to get some information on it. So you select the table, describe object, and we'll go out to there and give you the information on that table. Very, very handy. And what's even nicer is sometimes you get a query that's you have to debug or run or change, and you don't know anything about it. So what you can do is say, what does this query do? Paste in the query, send it off, and get the smiling robot response. And it tells you exactly what that query does. In this case, information about the top 5 customers who have rented films from the most distinct categories. So if you ever really get stuck on a query and you can't make heads or tails of it, this is a wonderful opportunity for you. Now, if you remember, we had that Olama query that I said didn't work, and here it is. And when we go to execute it, it comes back with an error from SQLite saying unique constraint on partition table must include all the da-da-da-da-da. Well, rather than sit there and reading the manual and trying to figure out what's going on, we have a little button that says AI explain and fix. This sends off your query to the AI and say, what's going on here? And it gets the error message. It will come back and it will tell you exactly what's wrong and generate the fixed SQL. From there, you can pop it into the editor. You can copy for pasting it later or execute. And it now tells you in this corrected query, the primary key is now a composite key that includes both the ID and birth year. Very, very handy. And by the way, this is another look at the corrected DDL. Okay, there's a lot more features to what DBeaver has, but we're time limited today. Thank you for attending, by the way. By the way, you can get free 2-week trials by going out to dbeaver.com and downloading. You'll see what our options are in just a moment. If you're a visual learner, please go out to YouTube and type in DBeaver AI. You'll see a lot of great information. If you're just getting into LLMs and you want to roll your own, this came out, this is the week of the 24th in August. The Register has this wonderful thing setting up Llama, which is another LLM. And if you have questions, please contact me, david.stokes@dbeaver.com. Once again, you can get a free 2-week trial of any or all of these. So if you want to try Enterprise and then Ultimate, 2 weeks here, 2 weeks here, try the cloud product or the team product for 2 years. Please give it a try. It's free, and we know that you'll try multiples, and we're convinced that once you try them, you'll really love them. Now, currently, these are the AI providers we support. There are more on the way, but unfortunately, I can't speak about that. If you have a favorite, please let us know. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention, and also thank the organizers for inviting me. Once again, go out to dbeaver.com, and if you have questions for me, I'm david.stokes at dbeaver.com.